Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everybody would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, good evening. Welcome to our August work session. Mrs. Sugars, would you take roll, please?
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Mrs. Judge?
Here.
Mrs. Matlack?
Here.
Mrs. Seidel?
Here.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Here.
Mrs. Schultz? Mr. Tomlinson? Dr. Wong?
Here.
Dr. Dickinson?
Here. At this time, we'll have our first public comment period. Your comments must be regarding items on the special action agenda for this evening. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please note that the green light will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. The light will turn red when your 3 minutes are up. No, nothing on the agenda this evening? Okay. I guess we'll move into our special action agenda. Mrs. Seidel, would you move C&I, please?
Yes, I will, Dr. Dickinson, as soon as I get to that portion on my, here we go. Okay. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2018-2019 school year. Number 2, approval of out-of-district student placements for the 2018-2019 school year. Do I have a second? Mrs. Judge, any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes, to all. Mr. Goodwin, would you move B&F in Mr. Tomlinson's absence?
Yes, I will. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. A, appointments. 1, approval of bill lists. 2, resolutions. 3, resolution approving regular education tuition students for the 2018-2019 school year. Do I have a second? Mrs. Seidel, are there any questions? If not, Mrs. Sugars.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes.
Dr. Wong?
Yes.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes, to all. Mrs. Judge, would you move HR, please?
Yes, I will, Dr. Dickinson. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointment certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, contract renewal, SAC and EDCC program. Number 6, assignment salary change certificated. Number 7, assignment salary change non-certificated. Number 8, other compensation certificated. Number 9, other compensation non-certificated. Number 10, ratification of CHASP contract. Number 11, other motions. And I'd like to point out that we have a handout, a pink handout tonight to add to numbers 2, 3, 6, and 7. Do I have a second? Mrs. Matlack. Any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Judge?
Yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes to all.
Dr. Wong?
I abstain from item 3 regarding Rowan University, and yes to the remainder.
Dr. Dickinson?
Yes, to all. I'm going to turn the mic over to Dr. Malash.
Thank you, Dr. Dickinson. There are actually 3 folks in the audience that I'd like to introduce the board to directly tonight. The first two I'm going to ask to come up to the podium together, Mr. Scott Shaw and Mr. Randy Smith are our newest campus police officers who will be joining our Cherry Hill campus police force. Mr. Shaw and Mr. Smith were both decorated officers throughout their career, incredible backgrounds, and both had children either in the district who have gone through the district. I wanted to congratulate them and introduce you to them. And again, even though he's on vacation, thank Mr. Saporito and Miss Adrian for the work that they did, which was incredibly challenging at times, but to go from an unarmed campus police force of 4 members to open up school with an armed police force of 9 members, to hire 5 new members and do all the interviews. We were supported in the initial interview process, Cherry Hill Special Education PTA, Cherry Hill African American Civic Association, Cherry Hill Hispanic Civic Association, as well as the Cherry Hill Police Department. So Mr. Shaw and Mr. Smith, we are really glad that you're here and part of the family. Congratulations, guys. And then the third person I would like to invite to come to the podium is Dr. Justin Smith. You just approved sending Dr. Smith's contract to the Executive County Superintendent for review. Dr. Smith is the candidate for the new Assistant Superintendent position here in Cherry Hill. And it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Smith back to Cherry Hill, and he'll share a few words to tell you a little bit about that, but just a little bit about him. He is currently the District Director of Assessment, Accountability, and Planning Coordinator in the Lenape Regional High School District. Dr. Smith holds degrees. He has an undergraduate degree from Williams College in Massachusetts. He has a master's degree, which was in literary studies. He has a master's degree in German from the University of Oregon. He has a master's degree in fine arts and poetry from Warren Wilson College in North Carolina. He received secondary teaching certification from the University of Oregon and holds his doctorate from Wilmington University. Just a couple of highlights before he went into administration as a teacher. He was a Fulbright Teaching Fellow in Germany, where he taught for a year, and he is also a 2008 recipient of the Princeton University Distinguished Secondary Teaching Award that is awarded annually. He's got a lot of other stuff that you will learn about him as we move forward, but incredible success in his career and is coming back to Cherry Hill. Dr. Smith.
For that wonderful description, support. I'm very looking forward to working with you. Also, want to say thank you very much to the Board of Education for enabling me to join the Cherry Hill School District. Thanks also to the staff who were involved in the selection process. Miss Adrian's here. Quality and the professionalism of that process, it spoke to what a special gratitude to many people, including my family. They support me every day, and I have my wife is sitting over there. Today, August 14th, it's also our wedding anniversary. So, okay. So. No joke, no joke. Very romantic. But it seems somehow appropriate, because I know, I think I can speak for both of us. I know I speak for myself, that she helps me be my best self every day, so I really, really appreciate it. And near her, my daughter Orly, who's a senior in high school. And Orly, I'm so proud of who you are and glad you can be here. Probably knew I might embarrass her a little bit, so mission accomplished on that. My 9th grade daughter, Annabelle, she would love to be here too. She is currently vacationing in Newfoundland. My parents, her grandparents, and love to be here, and my parents as well, and I feel I owe so much to them. I've worked in education, as Dr. Malash alluded, on both coasts, abroad, helping thousands of students, and I've told this story many times, that the single most important decision anyone ever made in my life was in the summer before 5th grade when my parents moved to Cherry Hill. And that single act on their part, it brought me into the Cherry Hill School District and changed my life forever. vividly remember 5th grade, 6th grade, and beyond, and my mind was maybe mostly on soccer and friends and my paper route and pizza, but I definitely remember how special those teachers were and all the school opportunities I had. And even for being so young, I can remember feeling so lucky to have had those opportunities. And even learning from my classmates too. So now, after decades in education, as Dr. Malash also alluded, dotted with degrees, awards, and thank you letters from staff and students, I feel like I owe most of that to that single decision that my parents made to move to Cherry Hill. And just all the preparation that Cherry Hill gave me to do whatever I wanted to do and go wherever I wanted to go. And to think that put me on a path that led me to this moment tonight, to get the chance to marshal up all my talents and skills and my experience, and to pay that forward to help all current and future Cherry Hill students experience the same thing and be able to say, decades from now, looking back, say the same thing that I can say tonight. That is my goal. So, and my parents, by the way, they still live in the same Cherry Hill house, okay, over 40 years. So I look very much forward to our work together, and I'm eager to get started. And I just want to say thank you, Board of Education, Dr. Malash, to everyone. Thank you.
I was going to say you're welcome to stay, but I'm sure you have better things to do. All right. We do not have any P&L nor strategic planning items, so we'll move to our work session. And Mrs. Seidel, would you share your recent C&I thoughts with us?
Yes, our very recent C&I. So our August curriculum and instruction meeting was just a few short hours ago. Today on August 14th, as usual, we had a big agenda. First up on the agenda, we had Dr. Rickensrud and Dr. Klein come in and present to us their plan for Thomas Paine this year for their all-school read. They will be having a celebration called Different Lives, One Story. I'm going to just read from their really great packet that they put together. The story they will celebrate is the challenge to live courageously one day at a time. We may be required to negotiate the challenges of a new school or push back against a bully. The book Save Me a Seat will highlight that, or choose to risk life and limb to reunite with family members for freedom. The book A Night Divided will cover that topic. Through these books, our students will be challenged to face life with courage and inspire others to do the same. So in this program, they have different texts available for grades K through 2, grades 3, grade 4, and grade 5. And then they have a culminating event in January after winter break where the whole Thomas Paine family gets together to explore the topics covered in these books. It's a really great program. For the past 4 years, they've done something called One Book, One School, and this is sort of the next evolution of that. The reason they presented to us in C&I is because one of the books they'd like to use, a book that's become very popular among their 5th graders, A Night Divided, they need our approval to add it to our list of approved books. You might remember a few months ago we had a new great list of books that the team worked on, and it would recommend adding this book to that list so that they can make it readily available for their students at Thomas Paine and also for other students in the district. So I'll pass this around, but I'm going to take it back because I'm going to read it. So that was the first item on our agenda. Next, Mr. Goldthorpe, presented a middle school Spanish pilot of curricular resources. Let me just grab my notes here. Sorry, I'm sort of running a little crazy with my notes today because it was so last minute. So the several world language teachers on the curriculum committee, on the Spanish curriculum committee, and they have been researching new curricular materials, and they have settled on, help me with the name of the, Avancemos. Does that sound right? Okay. So this is the curricular resource that they would like to use in order to make sure that it is the correct resource that they'd like to roll out across the Spanish curriculum at the middle school. They're going to do a pilot program throughout the 2018-2019 school year. And the teachers that are on the middle school Spanish curriculum committee will be the teachers whose students will pilot the program. So it's approximately 100 6th and 7th grade students at each of our 3 middle schools, so Carusi, Beck, and Rosa. And these students will use these curricular resources within their Spanish class. They'll be evaluated over the course of the year, and hopefully they will be rolled out across the board after a successful pilot. Next, we had Mrs. Minjin, who came in and talked about several things. The first was our yearly approval of nurses' standing orders. We had just sort of a quick overview of what that is for the new members to our curriculum and instruction committee. So basically, it's a list, a summary of procedures and products that can be used by all of our school nurses that's approved by our district physician. A set of standards, so to speak, that the nurses will work off of. It's a DOE requirement, and we have to certify that set of standards annually. So that will be on the action agenda in 2 weeks. Next, Mrs. Minjin talked to us about the Lifelines curriculum, and this is the curriculum that is part of the mental health curriculum that's used in health in grades 8 and 10, or is it 9 and 10? I may have wrote that wrong. 8 and 10? 8 and 10. It deals with suicide prevention is one of the pieces of that curriculum. This is an approved and used in the past curriculum. It just hasn't been updated in a while. So we will be approving the update to that curriculum. I believe we'll be getting details on those updates in our Friday packet. So keep your eyes out for that. And then the last thing that Mrs. Minjin presented to us, and this was in your C&I folder that you received earlier in the week, was an update on the Student Assistant Program. And I'm going to go through just the highlights. So in this deck, it highlighted the number of students seen by the Student Assistant Counselors, or SACs, in the 2017-2018 school year, and it broke it down by East, West, the alternative high school, Beck, Carusi, and Rosa. And we were provided with the number of students seen and then the number of sessions that each of those students were seen for. We also got an update on mental health referrals at the elementary, middle, and high school for the, and that was a wide range of data from 2003 through 2018. Then we took a look at the substance abuse data at the high schools, the total number of kids that were sent out for drug screens, and then the positive number of drug screens that were returned. The same substance abuse data at the middle schools. And then lastly, a summary of the passive alcohol sensors, which we talked about at previous committee meetings. And I thought this was a great statistic that I wanted to make sure I shared. Over 2,000 students were screened from September 2017 through June 2018 with the passive alcohol sensors. And there were no instances of positive use of alcohol at any of the events. So this tool seems to be working as designed, which is great news. And then lastly, she shared an update on BH Works, which BH is Behavioral Health Works, and this is the opportunity that parents have for their children in grades 9 through 12 at high school, East and West, to have their teens participate in the wellness checkup, which is called Behavioral Health Works. We talked about this a bit earlier in the year when we were talking about all of the district's mental health initiatives. We have some data from East and West from 2017 to 2018, the number of students that were screened, the number of positive hits from the screening, and then number of S12s that possibly came out of the data. So on a positive, we saw an increase in students in both East and West participating in BH Works. And as we've talked about in previous committee meetings, the hope is that number will continue to grow as the district, the community, and just the world at large talks more about mental health. So that was what Mrs. Minjin presented to us. Then Dr. Malash shared with us, sorry, where's my, a organization that the district will be contracting with called Hanover Research. And this is and Dr. Malash, please feel free to jump in if I'm not doing this justice, but this is a research organization that we will partner with and utilize them to help us use all of the data we have to make decisions and determinations. In the past, the district employed in-house sort of statisticians or people who could primarily focus on research, and we don't have that any longer. So it was really a need to partner with a company that has this expertise. The first 4 items that we are going to have them work with administrative team on are one-to-one technology initiatives, facility works, full-day kindergarten, and health, safety, and security. So they may not all get done in the next school year, but that is the plan. The total estimated cost is approximately $38,000 annually. And while that is a significant cost, what we talked about at the committee meeting was that if we hired somebody to do this research, and we would be paying significantly more than that amount of money. So, and then the last thing we had on our agenda was a theatrical production. East High School, their spring play musical this year will be Fiddler on the Roof. So they will be moving forward with that, and then we can expect another East production coming in September. I believe that will be coming before CNI to approve. We did not have any follow-up items or any new items. We did have one person from the public that spoke who actually brought up a really good point. When we were talking about the number of students who have utilized the BH Works survey, the community member pointed out that many students are being seen privately, whether through their pediatricians or their parents have taken them to counselors or other mental health folks. So those people probably would not say yes to the Mental Health Works survey, but we could probably feel confident that a bigger percentage than we're seeing in these numbers of our students are being seen and evaluated by mental health professionals. So we thought that was a really good point that we hadn't thought of. And I think that's it. Again, it was a very short time ago, so hopefully I didn't lose too much over the 2-hour window. But any questions, comments, discussion? No one? Yes, after Mrs. Matlock asked for it next, so I'll let you know. Okay, anybody else? Okay, back to you, Dr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mrs. Seidel. Mr. Goodwin, would you share the BNF committee work with us?
Absolutely. So for BNF committee, we met on Tuesday, August 7th, and we kind of went through a summary of things that from the business office update as well as facilities. We discussed the extraordinary aid that the district applied for extraordinary aid, and that was the application went in May of this year, but it was for the 2017-2018 school year, so it's kind of off in terms of how it goes through. Applied for $4,632,000 for 122 students. On average, the students that are out of district, around $55K per student, and for those students that are in the district, it's about $40K per student. So that was the application for extraordinary aid, and this state came back, or the amount that we were actually received was $1.8 million. So it was a pretty good rate, I would imagine, based on the amount that was applied for, but not the full amount. So we also talked about the conversion of the accounting and payroll and personnel systems, 3000 to CSI. It's actually going to help move the district and the employees so that they will no longer have pay stubs received. They'll be able to go online. There'll be an employee portal where they'll be able to receive their information that way. So that's going to be a big savings overall. And it also will help the accounting, because there's not going to be a hard close each month. So that's going to definitely help in the business office. We talked about the online board meeting. That's coming. I'm not exactly I think the target date is the 25th of next month. We're going to be but it's gonna, a lot of the work is going to be in the background, so we probably won't see it until some of the kinks have been worked out, and then that's when the board will actually have opportunity to see exactly how that goes. But there's going to be work in the background trying to move that along. And the final thing, as far as the business office update, we talked about the business office is going to be fully utilizing School Dude, which is the facilities calendar, so that like if East is hosting like some kind of activity, it'll all of what's going on in all the different schools is going to be on a calendar, so there will be one place where you can look and say what's happening in whatever building in the district. So that's what we're moving towards that. And then we also had an update in terms of the actual facilities department. There's been a number of new hires, a number of people leaving, and so there's going to be a restructuring, and there'll be more details on that in September in terms of how that's going to work. But there is going to be a restructuring of the facilities department to make it more streamlined and really help efficiency in that area. And we talked about some of the other projects, update on some of the projects going on in the area, in the district. There's locker rooms at Beck. I'm not sure if that improved, but there was some questions around them being delivered. I don't really have I haven't gotten a recent update, but there were some delays with that project. Hopefully, they were hoping to have it done by the end of August. I'm not sure where we're at.
Will not be done by the end.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, that won't happen. And then some floor replacements at the and the training room at Cherry Hill West is being updated. It was the training room entrance was through the boys' locker room at Cherry Hill West, and now there's a female trainer So they had to work out some things out there. So that's going to be updated, and they'll have a more modern entrance there. We talked about the soffit at Russell Knight being updated and replaced. And there's roofing work going on throughout the district. There's some work at Crucy with the HVAC that I think that's been put out to bid, that's looking to have that work done. And also, we talked about the security enhancements at Payne and Woodcrest, and those are upcoming projects. And the final thing, we talked about security assessment. That was a security assessment for the district. I believe it's complete, and now they're writing up the report, and we'll discuss that more at a later point in time in terms of how that, what the things that the district needs to look at in terms of security. I think those are the major items. Are there any questions? Yes, Ms. Seidel.
So I understand that you said that phase 1 of the online board meeting is a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but what does the long term, like what does that mean, online board meeting? Like what does it look like long term?
So right now, we're working with a program to have the board meetings more electronic and online. They'll show up on the screen here. Right now, we're running this meeting concurrently with the backup, but just for us, for the people that are preparing the agenda, so we can get familiar with what that looks like. The plan would be to also run the August 28th meeting concurrently and then come to the committee meetings and kind of let the board members see it, and then maybe run a full meeting on the end of September 25th, so board members can see what it looks like. We have a trial right now with this company, so we haven't made a commitment yet, so we can work out some bugs and people can see if they like it or not.
Any other? Yes, Ms. Catline.
I just want to say thank you for going forward with the online board meetings. That's been many years in progress, and I'm glad we're finally getting there.
Yes, Ms. Judge.
I have a quick question regarding when you said about the switching over from Systems 3000 and there's going to be no more hard close every month. What does that mean? Seems like you'd still have to do the regular stuff every month.
We do. So,
Okay.
but what would happen with our previous system is we would actually have to we couldn't move ahead. We had to put everything on hold until we got through the process. Now we can do kind of a soft close. We can move ahead into the next accounting system and then go back and do the hard close. So from a logistics standpoint, it's just a much easier system to work with.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Judge.
Regarding this online board meeting, does this mean that we can have board meetings when one of us is gone and we can online, or this is an interactive online board meeting where people at home can explain a little bit more, because I'm still a little confused.
So
obviously,
it'll just be a different mechanism for the board members to access the agenda, basically. So right now you sign in to the portal and you pull it up, and it's kind of a PDF document that you scroll through. This would be more of an interactive program where you can literally see the agenda. You can click on the items that you want to click on.
no more file folders? Yes.
There will still be some attachments. There's some things that, we do a lot of tables and charts and things like that. There are some things that will still have attachments. But for the most part, I think it'll be easier to navigate through the agenda for board members and the public as well. They will have access. They will be able to see it as well. We can also, if there's a sensitive document or a confidential document that the board can see but the public can't see. So there's lots of different features within the program that we'll be able to utilize.
Thank you.
So, Mrs. Judge, I think it means we can't stay home and be in our pajamas. And we have to actually still come to the board meeting.
I was going to get my GoPro camera. Thank you for that clarification.
Okay, Ms. Seidel.
Sorry, Mr. Goodman, I may have missed it. Is School Dude, the one calendar for all activities, is that going to be ready for September?
So School Dude is actually our maintenance system that we
Okay.
currently use, and this is a component of our maintenance system that we have not taken advantage of
Got it.
Previously. So I don't know if we'll have it up and running for September, but hopefully in the fall, at some point, we'll have that up and running.
Okay.
Right now, we really have to look into who has access to it, who should have access to it, and then we have to set up a hierarchy of approvals. So we're working through that process right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Not. I'll give it back to Dr. Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Mrs. Judge, would you share what you can from the HR meeting?
Yes, I will, Dr. Dickinson. Thank you. So our first meeting with our new board member structure for the 18-19 school year was last Tuesday, the 7th of August. So I'd like to welcome Mrs. Schultz, Mr. Tomlinson, and Dr. Dickinson to the HR committee. We met last Tuesday along with Mr. Green, attended our meeting, and as I usually state, it's a closed confidential meeting regarding personnel matters, so I won't be able to report much, but I can state that we discussed the recommendation for the assistant superintendent resume to be forwarded to the executive county superintendent, which we've just voted on and met the Dr. Smith. Mrs. Adrian also received an update on recruitment in the open positions report, and we're doing quite well for this time of the year. We discussed the policy, the applicant's employee history policy, which is also known as Pass the Trash policy, which is a horrible name, but that's what the nickname is. So we'll be voting on the first reading of this on August 28th, and we received a very brief negotiations update. And our next meeting, I think, is Wednesday the 5th because of Labor Day. And it's going to be at Cooper School. We're going to rotate our committee meetings around. So we will be at Cooper School on Wednesday the 5th. Any questions? Seeing none, back to you, Dr. Dickinson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Judge. Yes, I will discuss P&L as Mrs. Scarpolino was unavailable to meet. At a very short and quiet meeting. We met last Monday evening. We only had a few items that we discussed. Administration shared with us a new HIB threat assessment document that will be used beginning this academic year. Many of us wrestle with HIB and classification, and we always have many questions as to why things are classified one way or another, or whether they're found to be HIB. This form hopefully teases out all the issues with the HIB investigation, and it allows the building to get a better handle on what they should be looking for, a more granular detail. So I think it's a good idea. It should help the administrators greatly. So I have a copy here if anybody would like to look at it that I crumpled up and I threw away mistakenly.
I can put it in the memo. We can share electronically.
Okay. Very detailed. 2 pages, lots of questions to answer. This also helps people determine whether it's indeed an HIB or whether it's a code of conduct violation, which is often the issue that they need to wrestle with. Then we talked about one new policy, which is policy 8603, parent attendance at school bus stop, along with the accompanying regulation. This policy is as I said, a new policy. The policy lays out the protocols for parents at bus stops for pre-K and kindergarten students. Basically what it says is that a parent or a designated sibling have to be at the bus stop to receive the child, and if they're not there, the bus driver will take the child back to school. They will not be allowed to let the child just disembark and stand at the bus stop by themselves. There are penalties in the regulation for the parent after repeated offenses. So you have that in front of you if anybody has questions about it. And we talked about the second reading of the student smoking policy 5533 and the passive breath alcohol sensor device policy 5535, which is a second reading. We talked about that last month. And finally, we talked about a potential new policy requiring students to wear their student IDs visibly outside of their garments so that people can identify them as students. And I think it was mentioned that this is potentially a state law that's going to come down the line, so we may be required to do it anyway. We talked about different ways to display the ID using lanyards and other devices to assist the students to be able to, visibly carry their IDs outside of their body like this. And we had one person in the audience who really had just kind of a personal question, and that was about it. Any questions? Mr. Goodwin.
A couple of questions. So first, with the student ID, it's my understanding that the way you get a student ID is you have to participate in a picture day, and then after you participate in that picture day, then you get a student ID. But if you miss the picture day, then you don't get a student ID for that year. Is that accurate, or?
So the ID, yes, typically the pictures that are taken each fall are used at the secondary schools, the middle schools, and the high schools for the kids' IDs. They also have the technology in the buildings to produce student IDs as well for kids that either come late or miss the pictures that are there. And right now in the student handbooks, the students are required to have their IDs on their person at all times.
Thank you.
Other question, Mrs. Seidel?
For the draft policy about parent attendance at school bus stops, this is not a mandatory policy, correct? Right, like this is not one that's...
It is not.
Okay, so...
It's been our practice, but we have not had policy.
So I guess my question is on the regulation piece, under parent responsibilities, item number 2 about a parent may designate a responsible person. So I'm just thinking my own personal experience. If I was out of town on a business trip for a week, I would probably have a different designated responsible person every day, depending on who I was able to count on that day. So I would, write a note to the school and say, Monday, Emily's picking up Juliana, Tuesday, Evan's picking up Juliana, and how's the school gonna manage that?
The parent will have to notify the school about
Right.
who's the responsible. So when the kindergartner, they're dropping a 5-year-old off, or the preschooler, it can't just be the smiley person. So the parent will have to notify the school and say this is who it's going to be, and then the school will provide that name to the bus driver.
Okay, yep. I guess I'm just trying to understand where it came from, just thinking of it in practice, just remembering some of the bus stops when my kids were younger. It was like a group effort, right? Like somebody from the neighborhood whose baby wasn't napping would run down to the corner and pick up a whole bunch of kids. And
So it's one of the challenges, honestly, that we deal with. And I told the story when we had the meeting. When I was in 6th grade, I used to pick up 5 kindergartners at 25 after 11 and walk them down King George to Chapel, cross them over Chapel, and send them into the neighborhood, to go home. We would never think to have an 11-year-old walk kids home at this point, or across Chapel, right? It's, like I say, it's been our practice. Unfortunately, we run into the situation where the bus pulls up and there's a 5-year-old and there's nobody to be found. So then when we bring the child back to school and call the parent, and parents are, it becomes, so there's safety in having policy and the guidelines that are spelled out. It's just the reality of where we are. There will be an inconvenience at time. We always want to err on the side of caution that parent calls, and things are going to happen, right? Life happens. People work, At times, people are going to get jammed up, you know, and the bus is going to bring the kid back to school. We run into situations at times with kids in out-of-district placements, right, where the buses are bringing the kids back and they bring the kids over here. Because, again, life happens, you know, so we just have the protocols in place as to who can be responsible to accept that child off of the bus.
And I guess one last question, who makes the determination whether it's a responsible person? Is it the parent or the school?
The parent.
Okay.
Are we gonna, is this gonna be effective this year? This school year?
It
this
will. It'll be
September?
effective after the policy is adopted.
And,
Like I
and
say,
we're gonna make
it
it
has
very
been our
clear
practice.
for all kindergarten parents and all
Preschool and kindergarten, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Just, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm curious as to how the bus driver's going to know that I'm the person that Lisa said was picking up their child. You know what I mean? Like, how do we police that? I mean, when we have other people who can take our child out of school, we have to fill that out in the beginning of the year. Would something like that make more sense to do?
So there will be a form to go. They won't be on a daily basis. You know, ideally, parents won't call every morning at 11 o'clock and say, you know, Kathy's picking him up, Paul's picking him up, Joe's picking him up, right? We'll ask them to send the information in. Ideally, that's where it'll be, and we'll provide the name of who's picking them up to the bus driver. The bus driver will have to ask. You know, after a while, will they know that that's Kathy's picking up Paul every day, that that's who it is? They will. And again, there will be ones that they may call every day, and there may be delays to go in, but, you know, again, our responsibility is for the kids that are there.
And the transportation department has that information as well. So in case there's a sub bus driver, they can call in and they can get the information there as well.
I just know, like, when you say life happens, I had a neighbor who, I didn't do it, but a number of times I got the phone call where she'd be frantically trying to get back in traffic, and I'd get her kindergartner off the bus, but it wasn't, like, known ahead of time that was going to happen. So if I was on the list, I could give my name, and somehow the bus driver would know
Yes.
that I'm on. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So again, in situations like that, right? There's going to be an emergency. Emergencies don't happen every day, right? At least not to the same person, because if they do, then we start to question what's planning look like in terms of what's there, right? I mean, that just becomes the reality. If it's Carol may say, you know, Lisa Seidel and Jane Scarpolino are going to pick my kids up. You know, if I'm not there, they'll have that information in terms of what goes in. Like I say, unfortunately, it does happen that they get there and, you know, they can't have the child disembark.
On the draft regulation under the consequences, oh, it's in a school year. I see it now. Sorry, I was going to ask if it's one school year.
My one question on this one, once again, is so the bus drivers are under strict guidelines. They cannot let a preschooler or a kindergartner off unless there's someone there, a designated person there to so I mean, I heard of an instance in the past where a little kid got off, there was somebody else there. They thought that little kid was with the same person, with the other person there, they weren't. But so this is a regulation that will remedy that from ever happening.
Ideally, yes, it'll provide a foundation for it. If I had the formula to remedy human error, you know, I'd be on tour. But yes, it provides a structure and a guideline, you know, for where it is, what the expectation is. Will everybody live up to that? That's our expectation. You know, it's part of the discussion we have with the bus companies and the expectation for the drivers. Things happen. We have drivers removed. You know, all that kind of stuff takes place. But yeah, this solidifies and lays out in concrete language. This is what the expectation is.
Anything else? I so misread that. I thought that would be so straightforward. No questions. It's only half a page long.
I know. I've been prepared for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So I'll turn it over. We don't have any strategic planning items, but I will turn the mic over to Mrs. Matlack.
Yes. We did have our strategic planning meeting on Tuesday, August 7th at 7 p.m. And there were no members of the public there except for Jack from The Sun, who was filling in for Mike was there. And we had 2 items on our agenda. The first one was district communication. Mr. Plavinsky and Mrs. Wilson told us about a social media manager that they're going to use. It is part of Blackboard Communications Suite that we already utilize. So they're going to make use of another part of that to maximize our social media footprint, and allows us to link all the school sites together. And Mrs. Wilson track trending topics, I believe, on social media, correct? Thank you. So that is another aspect of Blackboard Communications Suite that we're going to utilize, just like with School Dude, that we already have that, and we're going to utilize another part of it in order to maximize. So thank you to our administrators for making total use of the things that we already own and use. The next part, we talked about the status of the bond referendum projects. And we talked about a little bit about the timeline, about how we have been in the process of this for the past 2 years and everything that went into that. As of our August 7th meeting, we had not heard from the state. And so Dr. Malash is going to read a statement on behalf of the board and the administration in regard to that. So Dr. Malash.
Thank you, Ms. Smatlack. As of this evening's meeting, the Cherry Hill Public School District has not yet received approval from the New Jersey Department of Education of the project proposal for the bond referendum, which right now is scheduled for a special election on October the 2nd. The proposal, which details the district's planned capital projects in each of our schools, was hand-delivered to the Department of Education's Office of School Facilities on April 4th, 2018. Under state statute, we expected to receive approval within 90 days. Given that the 90-day mark was on the July 4th holiday, we expected approval by July the 6th. In the 90 days from the date they received the submission to the July 6th deadline to respond, the Office of School Facilities submitted no questions or concerns about the project to the district or the district's architect. At the July 24th, 2018 board meeting, the Board of Education passed a resolution alerting the County Board of Elections that it intended to hold a special election on October 2nd, 2018. Notification of a special election needs to be done at least 60 days prior to the election. At that point, the district was still hopeful that the project application approvals were forthcoming. On July 25th, Mrs. Sugars, Mr. Middleton, who's an engineer from Beska Associates, and I met with members of the Office of the School Facilities at the Department of Education in Trenton. Mrs. Sugars, Mr. Middleton, and I clearly explained in that meeting that the Board of Education would need to approve at our August 14th board meeting a resolution authorizing the referendum. The folks from the Facilities Department of the Department of Ed promised to deliver application approvals in the form of preliminary eligible cost letters by August 7th, 2018. Despite almost daily communication with the Office of School Facilities and several visits to the department from Beska Associates personnel in the weeks following the July 25th meeting, August 7th, 2018 came and went, and no approvals were received. It became clear that the district would not be receiving approvals prior to tonight's meeting, and as we sit here tonight, we still have not received them. In conversations with the Board of Elections, the district has been informed that the Board of Elections' timeline for election preparation cannot be delayed beyond the end of this week. After several years of meticulous planning and meeting all the statutory timelines the district was required to meet, we are disappointed to delay the referendum. However, in order to have time to share comprehensive project information with the voters, with the community, and the board, the district believes that it is the best course of action to postpone the referendum from October the 2nd. We will have an update on a new date for the referendum at the August 28th board meeting, and I expect that I will ask the board to pass an additional resolution designating a new date at that meeting. And just to be clear about what the questions are, because people have asked about the questions from the Department of Ed. When we submit the applications, and we are waiting to receive a letter that refers to the preliminary eligible costs. So the discussion right now is about which of the costs for the projects we will get partial reimbursement from the state. It's not about whether or not they decide whether or not we need to replace the roof or put new windows in or deal with HVAC systems. It's how much of it is educational and what's the costs. There are some things that will be contained in the referendum, whether it's things related to bleachers or to a stadium or something like that, that are not directly educational, which would not be eligible for reimbursable costs to go through. That's where the discussions are right now. Unfortunately, the department has not met their own statutory guidelines. It's one of the most frustrating things that we've been involved with the past few years. The discussions continue. Mr. Middleton and Mrs. Sugars will again go to the Department of Education with Mr. Bessica, one of the architects for the firm, and have an additional meeting tomorrow. We expect that we will come to resolution and receive the letters from the department, hopefully in the near future. But as we are about 7 weeks out, 6 weeks out from the election, it just honestly is not enough time, nor does it do it justice for us to talk within the community about what the specific projects are. And honestly, until the board adopts the resolution identifying the questions for the referendum, we can't specifically advertise them to the public. The board must take action first. So in the interim, we will continue to have discussions. We posted on the website, Mrs. Wilson pushed out through our different channels, just an updated part of what the presentation was from March about projects for each of the schools. And it also goes through and explains in here what the process is that we have to go through in order for the project applications to be approved. There's additional steps that we will take once we receive the initial letters, and we will go through, and as soon as we can share additional information, we shall. But again, it's not questions that are coming from the department about why do you want to put a roof on, or why do you need this to go through, right? It's about what would be the eligible costs for reimbursement in terms of identifying those questions. And until we know those, we can't solidify what the questions are. So that's where we are. Sugars, anything that's good?
So several of us, well, all of us have signed up for back to school nights in September. We're still going to do that?
We are still, yes,
absolutely.
we are still going to
Okay.
back to school nights. The back to school nights will still run as they are scheduled. Again, you know, we have Mrs. Wilson, we've gone through and revised the communication plan weekly during the course of the summer. We will have, ideally at that point, we will be able to provide the visual displays. We have videos that will be ready to go for each one of the schools. But yes, we will still expect board members to be at the back to school nights to share the information. Still going out and speaking to community groups. Last Monday night after P&L, I had a chance to meet with 2 different Rotary groups who met together over at Ponzio's, you know, and talk about the project. We have additional meetings that are coming up as well.
Yeah, so parents and community members can look online and see the list of projects that we're considering. You know, what we can't, without the approvals, what we can't do is say which projects are going to be in which question and how much that's going to cost, how much that's going to cost the taxpayers, and what we're asking for. You know, so hopefully all of those projects that we feel are eligible, the state will also feel is eligible, and we'll be able to come up with that soon. It's frustrating for all of us. It's extremely frustrating, and I'm sure it's frustrating for the community, you know, who want to know. It's frustrating for us because we want to share all of that. It's frustrating for the administrators who are spending a great deal of their time with the state trying to get some answers.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, Ms. Matlick, and you introduced it, you know, we've been having this discussion in an intense fashion over the course of 2 years. And I guess the part of the frustration that goes through is that the board, you know, in 2016, 2017, met each of the milestones in the discussion. So went through the strategic planning process, talked about Cherry Hill 2020. And then during the 2017, 2018 academic year, same thing, met each one of the milestones that we expected to meet in order to stay on track. You know, the way the statute is written, the state has 90 days to review the applications to go through. The statute also includes in there that they can, if it's within those 90 days, say they need an additional 60 days to go through, you know, to review it. The end of the 150 days, honestly, is September the 4th. It's the day that teachers return to school. It's 3 weeks from now, you know, to go in, which is, no matter how they would want to argue about where it is, that's the end of the statutory regulation for them to review the projects. You know, it's just incredibly challenging. You know, we want to be able to talk about it as much as we possibly can, as we have. You know, we spent a great deal of time in the community meetings over the course of the last year, and board meetings and committee meetings, and we want to get it out and talk about it. You know, it's we want people discussing it. We want people actually talking about what actually is included, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. There's speculation, you know, and that's why, you know, Mrs. Wilson and Mrs. Sugars put this together. So it talks about the projects that are proposed to be included for each one of the schools. And this can be found online, and we'll continue to push it out through electronic media, but it is on the website. There's a link from the front page to be able to go through.
Any other questions? Okay, so we will continue this discussion at the strategic planning meeting in September 5th. And yes, and then hopefully how we're going to move forward. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. Dr. Malash. Don't think we have any new business. Any new business from anybody? Okay, so we'll move into our second public comment. You may now comment on any issue. When you come to the mic, please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes for your remarks. Please note that the green light will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. The light will turn red when your 3 minutes are up.
Good evening. Jennifer Nadio, 224 North Madison Avenue, Cherry Hill, 08002. I'm also the president of the Cherry Hill Special Ed PTA. CHSEPTA's focus is to promote inclusiveness for all students and their families within the special education community. Currently, that's 20% of the students in the school district. Our CHSEPTA members and board members are stakeholders and want to be at the table for all topics. No CHSEPTA members are on the kindergarten committee, and last week we were again forgotten for a discussion on ESSA and ESEA. It's just not acceptable. We've attended BOE meetings. We've sent emails for over a year asking for a seat at the table. Our families have been denied for all but 2 committees. As Mrs. Wethington advises the special ed community to follow the process when things aren't working, Cherry Hill Special Ed PTA has filed a complaint with the New Jersey Department of Education regarding the violation of Special Ed Advisory Board. We have sent a copy to Dr. Malash, certified mail, but have an extra copy with us tonight if you would like it. I would also like to comment on the busing. I have a child who is out of district. I must be at my home to get him off that bus every single day. So I understand traffic. I work in Voorhees. I work full-time in Voorhees. I have to be home by 2:30 for him. But I still do it. So I think kindergarten and pre-K, I think families can make it happen. And if I'm not going to be able to make it, I tell the bus driver or I tell the school that Nana's going to pick him up that day. So it is possible. I've been doing it. My guy's 14, and I still have to be at my home to get him off the bus every single day. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Rick Short, 1002 Charlton Parkway. I want to say 2 little nice things. You guys always do good reporting on HIB reporting. And I'd also like to thank the board and the school administration for the excellent job they do teaching my children. Thank you. Now on to the bond problems and the Barclays security failures. First off, I think and I wish you guys it would sink in that 95% of the people out there want better security protocols, and you keep ignoring it. You keep ignoring it. Also, with the Barclay failures, we had no 3M film. We had no 3-foot fence perimeter around the school. We also had no power source fencing. We also had no cameras in the AP or gym. Well, I can't say the gym because I was not in there. And also, your bushes are all overgrown at every school. Please check out the Winslow High School. There are no bushes practically. Bushes are bad. Next up to talk about the bond. I guess the question is on the bond is this. When we go back to the March 27th date when you made the first presentation on the reason you picked out Payne and Woodcrest, You stated you made it because of it was the cheapest way. And how would you even know it's the cheapest way when you didn't even have architectural blueprints of it at your presentation on March 13th, which when you count it out to the date of delivery is April 4th. So how did architectural plans ever come up for Cooper, Payne, Woodcrest, Kilmer, Beck, Carusi, East, and West? The public has not known, and still to this day, why did you pick Payne and Woodcrest to spend $1 million on security? That was a mistake. Now, what is missing in the bond bill that you could possibly add? First off, we could add 3M glass protection. We could also add panic alarms. Now, Washington Township also has panic alarms. Washington Township did 11 vestibules for $1 million. $538,443 of that was from grants. You're also missing in the bond Lobby Guard, which is a sex register checking system. You're also missing FlySense, which is a vapor and bullying system. You're also missing security cameras in your AP and gym. You're also missing marked classroom safe zones with easy duct tape. The stuff is very cheap to do. You're also missing lockdown door covers like Washington Township has. You're also missing 3-foot playground fence. You're also missing power source fences. And most important, you're missing bollards around drop-off and pick-up areas where children get picked up. I think you should adjust this bond with some of the security things so the parents in Cherry Hill can get behind you, and I can be, and others can be more of a cheerleader for the bond than somebody who works against the bond, because it's missing a lot.
Laurie Neary, 301 Bell Arbor Drive. I wanted to speak tonight regarding the passive breath alcohol sensor device policy. The last time I attended the meeting for the first reading of this policy, I requested my concern regarding the second to last paragraph, noting or not noting the notification of parents in that paragraph. I'm disappointed to see that still hasn't been adjusted. They're not in here anywhere. And if they're in the examination requirements and the policies noted below, if we could have, or I request, a copy of those policies to see if notification to the parents is stated there. As it stands right now, we're not notifying any parents anywhere in this document. We notify teachers, school nurse, school physician, or principal or designee, whoever the designee may be. But we are not notifying one of the most important stakeholders in this situation, and that's the parents. And that still hasn't changed from the first draft. And I'm also concerned in looking at the second draft and reading the document. We haven't addressed, again, as Jen Nadio noted, our special needs students. How do they fit into this policy? We have students, some with mild disabilities, some with severe disabilities, that also attend our after-school social events and our activities. How are we addressing the nonverbal student who attends a dance and may not understand the situation presented to them? So it's not addressed here at all. And again, they attend our activities as well and are just as important as the rest of the student body. So I respectfully ask that we not adopt this policy on the second reading and that we take a look at this a little further. Thank you.
Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. Can you hear me back there? Yeah, I have had a hard time hearing all night. Would you like me to sing? Without a doubt. Ann Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. First of all, I am bitterly disappointed at the state of New Jersey Department of Education. That's all I can say, otherwise you'll throw me out of the room. I I just want to address something that was addressed in social media this week, which may or may not be part of the board's discussion or eyes and ears. I would like to apologize for a comment that was made to Bessica & Associates or about them on social media. Nobody could know these schools better than that particular organization. And in reference to an earlier statement about architectural plans, John, I am sure that you have copious architectural plans from the last 20 years of being in these schools. Thank you. I don't know what to tell you about this bond. Please don't do December the 2nd. I don't know what the timeline is or how it works anymore because it's been a long time since I was part of a bond referendum. I am concerned about the constant verbiage of how we're not safe. I am really concerned about our schools now more than ever because it's been on public media in a very public source. I am scared, and I don't have children here anymore. So I would like to see us all work together to come to a common ground. I am eagerly awaiting your security consultant's report. Do you have an idea when that might be presented to the board and then the public? Have they given you a timeline? After that, thank you for doing what you do, because I know it's not easy.
Yoni Yaris, 422 Cherry Hill Boulevard. Dr. Malash has gotten to know me over the last year, I want to say. I just recently moved back, graduated East in 06. A couple of concerns. My day job is marketing communications for the largest national day school organization for Jewish day schools across the country. We've got 2 of us working on social media. Most of our schools, which are significantly smaller than you, have multiple people working on social media. I am deeply concerned that our public information office is still based in the 1990s when we had Channel 19 very actively involved with that, or actually I think it was Channel 18 when I was growing up. We want to go back that far in time. And really, I'm seeing the barrage on social media and everything else. We're not dictating the terms of the communication for this district. There are a ton of things going right, and you guys need to be doing a better job communicating that out. The bond is going to fail if the communication strategy continues. I have a tremendous amount of respect to Barbara, to the predecessor who I have known very, very well. And the second topic is to work on better engaging the alumni. There are a lot of successes. This past week, yesterday, a Cherry Hill alumni was on one of the late night shows. We should be celebrating that out. He got started because the music program at Cherry Hill High School East was known across all the elementary schools. We need to be celebrating, utilizing that. I think it's time to really expand administration to really look at how to engage that. It also comes with money. Money is really good and gets you away from the state dollars. And lastly, in terms of state dollars, have you guys reached out to Lou Greenwald, Pam Lampett, James Beach to really push them as the representatives of the district and the state house to be like, what is going on? And really push them and get them involved. They're on them if the state is not doing what needs to be done on the administrative level there. Thank you for all that you do. I'm really excited that my kids are going to be second generation Cherry Hill Public School students. Registered them today. So thank you so much for all that you guys do.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay, seeing none. Mrs. Matlack?
I just wanted to mention that at our CNI meeting tonight, we were talking about the passive alcohol sensors, and we were discussing our special needs students as well. And we were recalling that one of the first groups of students to use it was at a dance that was at West for special ed needs students, and how the prom that they have now, does that have a certain name, Dr. Malash? That Mrs. Bantle does that.
Right,
yes.
she runs a prom in the spring for the functional
Right.
and vocational students, which is functional and vocational
Correct.
kids and typically developing
right.
kids.
And part of that, her preparation for the students for that dance and for them to, have a great time there is preparation. And part of the preparation is to know what to expect and how to handle it. And that is one of the things that the children are taught at their understanding and their capability level. So I just wanted to point that out, that we discussed it.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Scarpolino, Mrs. Judge. Good night, everybody. Thank you for coming out.